Every animation studio has a villain. That either leaves a lasting mark or fades into obscurity. Some villains become icons, their names synonymous with evil, while others are so forgettable, we forget their faces the moment the movie ends.
Good job!
But what makes a villain unforgettable? What makes them stick with us long after the credits roll? In this deep dive, we're going studio by studio, exploring both the best and worst animated villains. The ones who raise the stakes and those who miss the mark. Today, we start with Disney's King Magnifico, a villain who had so much potential, but whose story ended up feeling like a missed opportunity. In the beginning, King Magnifico seems like a beacon of hope.
I founded this kingdom so there would be a place where everyone is safe.
He introduces himself as the protector of the kingdom, declaring, "I built this kingdom to ensure everyone lives safely." This makes him sound like a benevolent ruler, someone we might root for. His intentions seem pure, and you think, here we go, Disney is giving us a villain with depth and purpose. We think we're in for a journey of gradual moral decline, a rise to power driven by ambition.
Now, I'm really mad.
But then, everything changes. Just 20 minutes into the movie, Magnifico flips from hero to villain with absolutely no build-up. 1 minute, he's presenting himself as the kingdom's savior, and the next, he's selfishly ranting, "It's not fair. My Saba is good. The people of Rosas are good. They deserve more than what I decide." Suddenly, the noble king is revealed to be nothing more than a man who believes he deserves everything, no matter the cost. Now, normally, this kind of plot twist could be an exciting moment. But here, it feels rushed, poorly executed. There's no slow burn. There's no tension building to the reveal. It's an immediate shift. And as a result, the character feels less complex and more like a stereotype. A power-hungry ruler who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. Instead of being a tragic figure, he's reduced to a tantrum-throwing villain with a thirst for power. It's a quick turn that leaves you feeling like the movie skipped the most important part of his character's journey. But the plot doesn't stop there. Instead of exploring why Magnifico is making these decisions, the movie doubles down on his greed. King Magnifico already rules the kingdom. He's at the top of the food chain. And yet, he's not satisfied. He becomes hypnotized by a magical book and seeks even more power. Wait, so the most powerful man in the kingdom wants more? This just doesn't make sense. It feels like the writers couldn't decide whether he should be a tragic figure who loses himself in power or a man who is simply evil for the sake of it. The lack of clarity makes it hard to engage with his character, and instead, we're left with confusion. And then there's the villain song. Oh boy. If Disney wanted to give Magnifico an anthem that would cement his place in villain history, they completely missed the mark. Instead of a powerful, ominous theme, we get something that feels more like a bad TikTok jingle. "All I really want is a little respect," he sings, and the delivery feels almost like a parody. This is the song that's supposed to make us fear him. Instead, it makes us cringe. It's hard to see Magnifico as a credible threat when his villainy feels tacked on, and his anthem feels more like a meme than a serious composition. The moment he starts singing, the character's entire weight as a villain collapses. In the end, King Magnifico feels like a wasted opportunity. He starts off as a noble leader, and in theory, there was so much potential to explore his character. But by the end, he's nothing more than a shallow villain with poorly defined motivations. His arc feels rushed, and his actions make little sense. Magnifico's transformation from hero to villain is one of the most disappointing character shifts in recent Disney history. His character, fails to resonate because unlike villains with complex motivations like Scar or Maleficent, his shift feels artificial and abrupt. Now, let's move on to one of Disney's most iconic villains, Scar from The Lion King. If you're comparing Magnifico to Scar, the differences are night and day. Scar is the perfect example of a villain who makes his intentions clear from the get-go, and that's what makes him so terrifying. There's no guesswork here. Scar's villainy is right out in the open, and that's exactly why he's such a compelling antagonist. Scar has everything a great villain needs: the voice, the look, and the sharp wit that make him magnetic. From the moment he steps onto the screen, you know he's the one to fear. He doesn't need a magical book or an elaborate backstory. His jealousy of Mufasa and his lust for power are straightforward, and they're enough to make him a formidable foe. His motivations are as clear as day, and that's part of what makes him so chilling. There's no question about why Scar does what he does. He wants the throne, and he's willing to do anything to get it. Scar's villain song, Be Prepared, is an absolute masterpiece. It's dark, it's catchy, and it perfectly matches Scar's personality. Unlike Magnifico's jumbled anthem, Be Prepared is menacing and calculated, giving us a glimpse into his twisted mind. Every word Scar sings feels like a calculated move in his master plan to take over the Pride Lands. This song doesn't just announce his intentions, it sets the tone for the entire film. What really sets Scar apart, though, is his ability to carry out his plans with ruthless efficiency. When the moment comes, he doesn't hesitate. He kills Mufasa, his own brother, without batting an eye. The cold, calculated way he does it is chilling. Scar doesn't hesitate. He doesn't flinch. He pushes Mufasa off the edge of the cliff, and immediately he rubs it in Simba's face. Your father would still be alive, Scar taunts. That's not just evil, it's a complete disregard for family and a pure expression of Scar's sadistic nature. What makes Scar even more terrifying is his ability to manipulate. He doesn't just brute force his way to power. He uses psychological manipulation to control those around him. He plays with Simba's guilt and uses it to make Simba feel responsible for Mufasa's death. And even when Simba realizes the truth, Scar still manages to hold on to power through fear and intimidation. Scar doesn't need gadgets or magic. He's a master of the mind. Even after Mufasa's death, Scar continues to torment Simba, pushing him into exile and maintaining control over the Pride Lands. Scar is a villain who doesn't just want to be king. He wants to break Simba mentally and emotionally, and that's what makes him such a powerful antagonist. His journey is one of pure evil, and every line he speaks makes him even more dangerous. After Scar, it's hard not to notice the stark difference with Carlos from Hop. If Scar is the ultimate example of a well-crafted villain, Carlos is the polar opposite. In Hop, Carlos is a forgettable and uninteresting character. He starts off as a simple chick trying to get a job and doesn't even begin as a true villain. And there's no real emotional depth or motivation behind his actions. Carlos's transformation into a villain feels forced, rushed, and poorly executed. Unlike Scar, there's no slow burn or careful build-up.
Given these troubled times, even a humble chick could do the job.
He simply decides that he wants to be the Easter Bunny, so he starts training to take over. But the entire premise of his villainy feels flimsy and unoriginal. Even when he tries to trick Ebi's father into believing he's dead, the whole thing feels contrived. It's a cheap trick that doesn't land as a plot twist, It feels like a lazy plot device. Carlos's villain arc doesn't even happen until the final act, and even then, it doesn't feel earned. By the end of the film, he's outwitted by a dancing chick, and the movie's overall tone undermines any potential for tension. Carlos isn't a character who ever feels threatening. He's a weak villain, and his actions never seem to have any real weight or consequence. In the end, Carlos is nothing more than filler, a character who takes up space without adding any real depth or value to the story. We have Vector from Despicable Me, a villain who stands in stark contrast to Carlos. While Carlos is forgettable, Vector knows exactly how to grab attention. His goofy, over-the-top personality, along with his ridiculous appearance, make him instantly memorable. But don't let his absurdity fool you. Vector is a villain who knows how to get things done. Unlike Carlos, who lacks motivation, Vector is driven by pure ego. He's out to prove that he's the best, and he's willing to go to extreme lengths to make that happen.
FBI, open up!
One of his most ridiculous acts is stealing the Great Pyramid of Giza and replacing it with a giant inflatable pyramid. It's utterly absurd, and yet you can't help but admire his audacity. He's the kind of villain who doesn't take himself too seriously, but he's still a serious threat. Despite his comedic nature, Vector isn't afraid to cross lines. He kidnaps Gru's kids without hesitation, showing that he's not just playing games. He might look ridiculous in his traffic cone suit, but he's a real villain with a plan. Unlike Carlos, Vector's actions matter. He wants to prove himself as the best, and he's willing to do anything to achieve that goal. Now let's look at Evelyn Deaver from Incredibles 2. Evelyn is a villain who seems like she could be a worthy adversary, but in the end, she falls short. Her motivations are rooted in her personal grief over the fall of superheroes, but her desire to eliminate them feels shallow and underdeveloped. Unlike Syndrome, whose vendetta against Mr. Incredible is rooted in personal trauma, Evelyn's reasons for hating superheroes feel less compelling. While Evelyn's plan is to manipulate the public using technology, it's not enough to make her feel like a real threat.
But it was controlled by the screens built into his glass.
You are good.
Her villainy lacks the emotional depth needed to make her truly unforgettable. Even when Elastigirl saves her life, Evelyn refuses to acknowledge her own shortcomings and instead doubles down on her petty grudge. This stubbornness makes her character feel one-dimensional, and it doesn't make her a compelling villain. Syndrome from The Incredibles is a perfect example of a villain whose motivations are rooted in personal pain. Syndrome was once just a fan of Mr. Incredible, but after being rejected, he decides to build an elaborate revenge plot. Unlike Evelyn, whose motivations are fueled by grief, Syndrome's reasons for hating superheroes are deeply emotional. Syndrome spends years creating a plan to eliminate superheroes, all in the name of proving himself. His obsession with revenge is his driving force, and it's what makes him so compelling. He doesn't just want to defeat Mr. Bibb.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing!
Incredible. He wants to prove he's better than him, and that emotional core is what makes him unforgettable. Syndrome spends years building a complex revenge plot, showing us how deep his pain really goes.
Go to the office.
What'd I do?
Just go to the office.
What'd I do?
Even though he's humorous and quirky, there's a real darkness to his actions. He's not just looking for power, he's looking for validation. He wants to show that he's not just Mr. Incredible's equal, but his superior. The best villains have an emotional core that drives their actions, and Syndrome is one of the best examples of this in modern animation.